All right, so today in Tech Intent, we're going to be having a look. The core skills today is backing up with your time machine. Liz has brought in her machine and a brand spanker hard drive. You don't have to use a brand new hard drive. You can use an older one, but if it is an older one and it has stuff on it, you need to be prepared to lose all the stuff that's on it. So for me, I'm just going to get another one. And I'm going to have that as my dedicated drive. Once you're using it as a backup drive, you can still put other stuff on it and use it as just a plain old hard drive. And Safari, your MacBook will just put that stuff around it and with it, but it will reformat the drive when we plug it in, which we'll see in a minute. Okay, so I'm actually going to airdrop. I'm going to AirPlay up Liz's computer so you can see what I'm doing. I'm recording on Liz's machine now. All right, so this is a 3 terabyte one, I think. 2 terabyte one, that's heaps big enough. 1 terabyte, yeah, depending on how big the drive is, that will determine how far back your MacBook will back up to. So this one should back up quite a few months. Every time you plug this in from now on, every time Liz plugs this one into her machine, it will automatically start doing a backup. You won't have to do anything. It'll just start backing up. So once you've done this setup process, you just plug it in every now and then. For me, I might do it once a month. Realistically, when I actually remember to do it, it's probably once a month. But the more regularly you do it, the more often it will back it up. So I'll show you what happens. So this is from scratch. This is straight out of the box. I've just literally taken it out of the box just now, and nothing's been done to Liz's computer. So I'm not actually sure how this is going to go, but this is what you're going to experience too. So I plug it in to the USB. And then up the top here, we're looking for this little, like a clock symbol with a backwards arrow. And I haven't clicked anything. That's just popped up automatically. And it's asking me, do I want to use that hard drive with Time Machine to do my backups? Okay, now I can decide later, no, or don't use it, or use it. The other thing is that I can tick encrypt backup disk. I don't recommend doing that if you're not the kind of person that is good at remembering a bunch of passwords, because every time you plug that drive in, it's going to ask you to put in that password every time you plug it into any machine. So it will encrypt that hard drive as like a massive security box and lock it pretty tight so you can't get in there without that password, ever. So unless you think you can always remember that password, then I probably wouldn't tick that box. All right, so I'm going to click Use as Backup Disk. Am I sure that I want to use it? Because the reason it's asking me, am I sure, is because it's going to erase everything. That tells me that this drive, out of the box from the shop, is not formatted for Macintosh, and it's about to format it for Macintosh. So that's why if you take another one that's laying around at home, it will format it for your MacBook and erase everything that's on there in the process. So it's asking me, am I sure? Because once I press that button, anything that's on there is gone. Erase. So it's actually doing the setup for me to set up this drive as my backup. Okay, and you can see it's switched from off to on, and now my Time Machine is on. So up the top here, I can force it to start now by saying backup now, but you can see here it's going to do it in 102 seconds. It's going to start. It just gives you a little bit of time to pull out of that situation before it actually goes for it. So, but I'm going to force it to go now. So it's going to back up everything that's on Liz's computer, all her files, all her preferences, the apps that are on there, the way she's got her screen laid out, the way she's asked it to click or swipe, all of those preferences will be backed up. So basically, if I was to spill coffee all over this machine and it went dead, I could take this drive, plug it into a brand new MacBook, and it would clone what was on here to make it look exactly the same. So that's why it's important to do a backup every now and then. If you don't do that and you're about to do an upgrade, say to Sierra, then if something goes wrong, no worries. We plug the drive in, we're good to go again. We can start again. It'll be an hour of inconvenience while you panic about getting back online again, but at least you'll be able to get back there. So the first time you do it might take a little while. You can see it says about 23 minutes to go, and that may even climb as I'm talking. Apple's not that great at determining how long, so now it's 20 minutes. But however long that is, the first one will take a while because it's backing up everything. From that time on, it will only back up anything that's changed since the last time that you backed it up. So it may be only a few things. So those backups will be very quick. All right, so I'm going to let that go while I move on for the rest of our stuff. That's the time machine. It's as simple as that. Once it's done, I'm just going to red dot that and I'm done. I can eject the drive and get on with it. While that's happening, I can still be doing other things. I don't have to stop or walk away and come back. I can just keep going with whatever I'm doing. It does it in the background silently. Okay, so Mac Sierra. The reason we're doing these backups is so that you can move to Sierra. So if you've done a backup already, so Liz by this afternoon will be good to go. You can then upgrade to Sierra. I can take you all through that next week, but if you feel confident enough to do that on your own in between now and next week, all you need to do is that backup. If you don't do the backup, you can still go to Sierra, but if something happens to your machine, you won't have that backup. That's the warning, I guess. That's the risk that you take. But you can move to Sierra without doing the backup, but if something goes wrong in that major system upgrade, you won't have a backup to get it back up. You'll have to start from scratch again. Okay, so just so you know that. Sierra's going by I'm giving each of the machines a Apple ID to work with. If you've used your own personal Apple ID already to do that, that's fine. But if you don't have one or you'd like to just use a school-based one, then just let me know that you're going to do it and I'll flick you the Apple ID and the password. Otherwise, we could do it next week together. All right. All right, so having a look at some skills here, I just wanted to show you this diagram just to keep in our heads. I might refer to this throughout the year a fair bit. Last year I was part of a group called the TPACK team, and that was a group of teachers from around the northern cluster. And we looked at this idea of TPACK, and basically in the past we've thought about expert teachers. Ooh, that's handy. We've thought about expert teachers as having great pedagogical knowledge as well as good content knowledge. But in the 21st century, things are evolving, as we know, and technology is playing a more major part in what's happening in schools. So they've actually added this extra part here, the technological knowledge. And so they're talking about the sweet spot, the expert teachers living right in this centre place where all three of those areas overlap. So if you've got great pedagogical knowledge and great content knowledge and great technological knowledge, you're going to get the most out of your learners. So if we can start developing this skill set here together and building up our confidence and our competency in that area, we can also start to build what's going on in terms of our learning and teaching in the classrooms. It will enhance what we already have. So that's part of what my role is to help you guys doing. So these core skills that we're looking at will help you with that. The pedagogical skills that we work on in classes with our learners will help build that TPACK knowledge. All right, so I just wanted to just put that in front of your eyes to consider. The other part that goes with this is something we looked at about, it was nearly 5 years ago. I looked in the last presentation I did for the SAMR model. But basically the SAMR model is a framework for ordering the complexity with which we use our technology. So I've chosen this image because it's coffee and I like coffee. So at the substitution level, all we're talking about is taking something that we already do and replacing it with technology. And we haven't actually changed anything, we're just using it for the same reason. So that's like someone taking my cup of coffee and giving me a cup of coffee. Nothing's really changed. It's the same thing. The next level up at augmentation is when you use the technology, but it has some kind of improvement to what you've been doing before. It might only be minor, but it is a change, and it improves the learning somehow. So that's kind of like, you know, if you've just got a plain old Nescafe Blend 43 and then someone gives you a nice latte. Oh, that's a bit different. It's a little bit improved. I personally don't like the milk, but that's up to you. It's still a metaphor. Modification. Tech allows for significant task redesign. So you've added some flavour into it. You've really got things, it's actually a different tool that you're using now. It's not the same as it was initially. You haven't just switched something out. You've added something to it so much and changed it so much that it's actually a new tool, which then leads us to redefinition, where we've actually invented a whole new way of doing things, something that previously wasn't conceivable without the technology. So if you couldn't do that thing without the technology, you've probably moved at least into the modification, perhaps even into the redefinition stage. And that's where we see the most effect with learning. So those top two, modification and redefinition, is where we're aiming to get. But substitution, if that's what you've done, is a great place to start. If you've substituted something for something else and there's not a lot of change going on there, it at least gets you thinking about and starting conversations about what could I do with that to build up that to an augmentation stage. So I, again, just want to put that in front of you for consideration. We'll refer to it again throughout the year, but it's basically a model that is known around the world as good practice when using technology with learners. There is a video that you can watch. I'll leave that on there to play. I'll put it next to this video for you to play as well. It explains it better than I just did, but in 2 minutes. It's really short. It is American, but that's okay. All right, so sharing this week, we had the privilege actually of hanging out with the Year 3s. I've lost track of time. I think it was last week, or maybe the week before. Yep. And it was a great, day basically of using making to respond to literature. And the book that the Year 3s looked at was Sophie's masterpiece, or that was one of the books. And the kids actually used the book and responded to that by designing and creating their own masterpieces. And so I thought if any of that Year 3 team want to talk about it, I'll just chuck up a slide or a little movie of what went on that day. But it really did, I've heard since that day, the idea of that was to create stimulus for great writing. So now that they had gotten saws out and drilled things and pulled computers apart and painted things and made stuff out of other stuff, that gave them a lot more reason to put more energy and effort into their writing. So it was a nice little cycle there. There's no sound, so if any of the three Year 3 teachers want to talk over the top, that's fine.
I guess we started our year with the growth mindset, the DOT book, and we got all the students to draw a dot to show you that, dot is something that's the start of your learning. And Mercedes had also discovered this Sophie's Masterpiece book. Why don't we go from a dot to a masterpiece? And from that, we looked at, as part of the learning process, the kids are building knowledge. They're starting with a simple sentence to describe their dot as well, and then they have something real to make their writing more descriptive, which was something that we were focusing on. On top of that, we also had design technology, which Mercedes, do you want to talk about how you used it for design technology?
Yeah, sure. So few learning areas together. So the English that was driving it was how language is used for different effects, and we wanted to use language to change the mood in our reader, and we got down to you change the mood of the writing based on the adjectives that you use to describe whatever it is you're describing. So in Sophie's masterpiece, we know that it's a masterpiece because of the language that is used to describe it. So they had to use similar language to describe their masterpiece. I spoke to Lauren and she told me about the think, make, improve cycle. So we read the book, we thought about what words do we want people to say about our masterpiece? What do we want our reader to think? And from that, they gave us some language, and then we did the think stage, which was, okay, now you need to think of what you want to create, what is it going to be made of, how is that going to make a masterpiece? That was think. Then we went into make, and in the think stage, they also labelled everything with what it was going to be made of. Then they made it, and then Dennis and I did a gallery in our classroom, so everyone put their masterpiece out, and you had to go observe and steal an idea. So you had to steal an idea from someone else to go back to your masterpiece, and then they got 1 more hour to improve their masterpiece. And then after the improve, we finally did the writing.
So if you're looking for a way of engaging students in any area of learning, making is definitely one way that you can do it. Kids love getting their hands on stuff, pulling things apart and putting them back together. And both Laura and I have some experience in that, and we're super keen to talk to people about making and how you can fit that in to enhance your learning. So.
And thank you for coming and doing that, because that was such a great help with such a big variety of masterpieces that we had. We really needed your expertise.
It was fun, and secrets told, as you look around the room, it wasn't just the kids that were engaged in the learning either. Thanks everyone, Tekken 10.